Good morning, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Now, it's Record Store Day tomorrow, and I've noticed over the past few years of participating in Record Store Day pretty actively and passionately that my attitude towards it has changed somewhat. And something that used to be an event that I would actively save money for and look forward to and, eagerly await the release of the list of titles that were coming out that year. Now, it's become a sort of anticlimactic, hollow soiree that, in all honesty, I'm probably not going to take part in at all this year. And I just can't really be bothered with it anymore. Might have a wholesome lie-in or go to the gym or something tomorrow morning instead of queuing for like 8 hours to get some not actually limited edition picture disc release or re-release of an album that I already own and I don't even like that much, just because I've been sort of tricked into thinking I need to spend money on it because it's somehow a Record Store Day exclusive. I don't know. But I'm gonna talk in this video a little bit about why I no longer really like Record Store Day, at least not in the same way that I used to. And a few disclaimers just before I get into this video properly, because I'm bound to irritate some people, and that's not my intention. I'm not trying to make some, purposefully controversial or irritating video. Firstly, I'm not talking about it from the perspective of a record shop owner. And I know that the whole purpose of Record Store Day originally was to give independent record stores one day where their profits could just boom. And all of that is really good in principle. And I think that it probably is still very, very good and useful and helpful for a lot of indie record shops, and I don't want to say that there's anything negative about the idea or the concept behind Record Store Day, and I would never dream of talking about it from the perspective of someone who owns a record store. So, I'm not going to be talking about it to do with anything like that. And also, these are my personal opinions, my personal experiences, and my personal viewpoints. They might not match yours, and if I say something that you disagree with, let me know. And especially if I say something that's actually just ignorant or wrong or misinformed, please let me know, because, I'm always open to have my mind changed about things. Right, so let's get into it. These are the reasons that I hate Record Store Day. Although obviously I don't actually hate Record Store Day, but this is a YouTube video, and I couldn't exactly call the video reasons why I find Record Store Day a little bit tedious and anticlimactic at times. So the first reason that I don't enjoy Record Store Day to the extent that I used to is, and I'm aware of how much of a hipster sort of saying this is, but it's become too popular, by which I mean it's become too big, and I really feel like the labels involved are fully aware of just the scale of people that will turn up and do very little to increase the production numbers of the records they're releasing, which inherently means that each year it gets more and more disappointing. There are more and more things that you want that you can't get. And this can obviously be frustrating, but the thing is with Record Store Days, you have to acknowledge the event of it. You can't go to a record shop on Record Store Day at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon and expect there to be things that you wanted still there. It would be naive to do so, but it's kind of overwhelming and hard to deal with. And this may well be just my own personal experiences, because I live in Cardiff. It could be completely different in other towns or cities, but in Cardiff, as far as I'm aware, there is one shop that participates in Record Store Day. There used to be two. There was Head and there's Spillers Records, which is the oldest record shop in the world, but it's also tiny, like fucking tiny. And that's nice. It's a really, really good shop. But that's now the only place that you can do this. And this means that there's just this unbelievable bottleneck of people trying to partake in Record Store Day. And there's just no way that it can work. And this is what happened last year. So last year was the first year that I can remember thinking I've actually had enough of this now. So, and just to put some context to this story, I went to my first Record Store Day about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was when I lived in Gloucester. And what me and a friend of mine did is we would get up really early, get the first bus into Cheltenham, which is where the record shop was that we were going to, and got there at like maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock. Had to queue for maybe an hour maximum, I'd say, and that was fine. That very much felt like this is a fun, enjoyable event. Everyone who was there, who we saw anyway, we were all kind of in the same boat, having the same sort of time there. It was enjoyable, it was exciting, we were picking up things that we really, really wanted. And last year, my friend Sim and I got up early, again, met in town, probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock. And this was the first year that it was only Spillers that was doing it. So I knew that there'd be more demand. And we got to the lane that Spillers is on, and there was already a pretty big queue. And yeah, this was an hour and a half maybe even 2 hours before the shop was due to open. And saw this queue, but it wasn't too bad. There were maybe 50, 60 people waiting there. So we got in the queue and just waited and just chatted, and you speak to the people next to you, and that was all nice. But here's the thing, right? I had work at 1 o'clock, and I can remember thinking, it's a good job I don't have work at 9, because otherwise there'd be no chance of me getting in. Little did I know that I wouldn't get in at all. I was in the queue, not just in the queue, but moved forward maybe 10 meters between 8 o'clock and 12:45. The shop had been open for about 3 hours. And I found out from talking to people in the queue that the first people who had started queuing for Record Store Day 2018 had got there at 7 o'clock the night before. That's fucking insane. Fucking insane. And I really don't care if that pisses people off, because I think any situation, unless it's literally like the most valuable prized record you could possibly want to get, and this will be your only chance ever in life to get it, would do that, would be willing to go somewhere and literally stay on the streets overnight waiting for Record Store Day to open. And the thing is, and this is the problem I feel with Record Store Day, is that those types of people that are going there that early, they probably don't even collect records. They are most likely just eBay hacks that are going to go there, get a whole load of the stuff that people actually want, and then sell it on eBay for massively inflated prices. Yeah, there's something that I find disagreeable about the idea of Record Store Day being something that people start queuing for the night before. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me. That's not why people collect records. Like, the pleasure in it is in digging through crates and spending time in a record shop, not being forced to queue for like 8 hours, getting a 5-minute window. So yeah, I don't know, in a nutshell, that's the first reason that I dislike Record Store Day. I find the whole idea of having to queue and wait for that long just awful. And this is possibly something that's just because I live in Cardiff and there's only one record shop that does it. I wish HMV did it, but obviously that would be completely against the whole message of Record Store Day, because it's for independent record shops. But HMV is a really big shop and they have a really massive, quite honestly pretty good record collection, and it would be much more convenient if they did Record Store Day as well, because it would also, I don't know, maybe take some of the pressure off Spillers, because I mean the staff that I saw like did not look particularly happy that day. But I don't know, that's entirely speculation on my part, I don't know. But yeah, it's grown so much, but there's been no helpful thing that the company have done to try and make it a little bit easier on people. Why don't, for all of the exclusive releases, they do an online release for some of them that can be partnered with the stores that are taking part, but an online release with like maybe 5 to 10 copies of the exclusive ones, so that some people, and also like the thing is some people actually just can't go and do that, whether or not they would want to or not. Some people cannot go at like 5 o'clock in the evening the day before an event starts and queue. Doesn't mean that they're less of a record fan or a music lover. It just means that they have actual lives. It seems weirdly unfair, and I don't want to be like all hippie-ish about it, but I fail to see how that's different from people on Black Friday queuing to get a flat screen TV for 40% off. It's the same sort of level of obsessiveness. And again, it makes me question people who would do that. It makes me question what their motives are, because I would have to be paid to do that. You'd have to pay me to sit on the street overnight waiting for a record shop to open. So there's probably a massive financial incentive for these people. They wait there and then they get all of these records that actual fans want but can't get now because they have lives and didn't queue for that long. And then they sell them on eBay for prices. But again, I feel like it's just such a rant. This is just me. It's all conjecture as well. I don't know. Maybe the people who get there first are just super dedicated fans. But yeah, it's like there's a shop in Cardiff Next, right? And they have these famous Boxing Day sales. And this year it was reported that there was something like 60 people started queuing on fucking Christmas Day. This is going to sound judgmental, but what is wrong with people? Like, what are you missing out on in life to queue on Christmas Day to get a discount on some clothes in a shop? It's not even a nice shop. It's Next. Like, it's fine, but it's not great. Like, I don't know. And this is the thing, is that this was my feeling. In Record Store Day last year, I felt like I was there and I was like, wow, it's turned into this crazy thing that people are camping overnight for. What? That's just not what I associated it with. I associate it with a nice day. That, yeah, you get up early and you go and queue early, but getting there really early ensures that you're going to get in fairly quickly. That was the whole idea, is that if you got yourself out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and started queuing at 6:30, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, it meant that when the shop opened, you wouldn't be waiting for very long to get in because you'd be close to the front of the queue. And we were close to the front of the queue and waited for 4 or 5 hours in the queue. And I didn't even get in. I had to give a load of money to Sim while I was like, yeah, see you, mate. I'm going to fucking work. That's one of my problems with Record Store Day. Oh, people are probably going to hate me for making this video. I just sound like such a twat. The second reason that I dislike Record Store Day is because I feel increasingly, and this could be due to my subjective taste in music, that the releases are just not that great anymore. Like, they're really not. Like, I don't want a picture disc of an album that has already been released on vinyl on like 3 different editions. Like, I get the collectability, but I feel like they focus way too much on re-releasing things that already exist and not enough on giving newer artists their first vinyl release. Like, that would be fucking cool if instead of releasing a special colored vinyl version of a Led Zeppelin album, like the money that goes into pressing all of these records was given to like small artists, small local bands in that area. There was like a fund of this pressing that like if you get chosen as one of these bands, you can have your music pressed on vinyl and your first release can be this Record Store Day exclusive. And that would be cool. And that would be more, I feel like, in keeping with the idea of Record Store Day. Is about promoting independent shops, but independent shops are good because they are able to promote independent artists. And I feel like that would be a better use for the records. And like I look through the list and there are a couple of things that I'm like, yeah, I want that. But then sometimes I have to try and catch myself and I think, do I actually want that? If I saw that in a shop just by itself without any connotation to Record Store Day or limited edition releases or anything like that, if I just saw that, would I actually buy it? And the answer is mostly no. Occasionally it's yes, but usually the reason that I end up buying something on Record Store Day is because they've sort of tricked me into thinking that, oh, this is a Record Store Day exclusive. If I don't buy it today, I'll never be able to own it. And then like 8 months later, I'm in the same record shop and there's a huge bargain bin of the Record Store Day stuff from last year. And I'm like, oh, there are like 5 copies of the record that I queued for 2 hours to get. And it just seems annoying. Yeah, gimmicky faux collectibles. That's what I feel a lot of the Record Store Day releases are. I mean, that being said, I would love to get one of the copies of Olafur Arnalds Remember, because it comes with new tracks and it's got random artwork that isn't on the original. But I just don't know if I want it enough to actually queue for as long as it's going to take to potentially get there. And I don't want to waste my day queuing. I think that the list of music isn't that good. There's way too much emphasis on re-releases and not enough emphasis on local artists. I think that there should be an actual portion of the Record Store Day money, or like labels should be encouraged to, instead of re-releasing something in a different color, why don't you give that really, really cool band whose gig got a really good review in NME or something, I don't know, but they're all working part-time jobs to feed themselves so they can't afford to have anything pressed on vinyl. Why don't you give them a fucking vinyl release? And this is another thing, right? Having to queue, it like turns you into a worse version of yourself, you know? I would be in the queue and I'd see someone leaving with a copy of a record that I wanted to get, and I would kind of be like, oh, I want that. You better not have taken the last copy. I'll be really pissed off if you got the last copy. And that's just not a good place to be in. It's just like forcing people against each other. And like I said, it's this like this forced and imposed scarcity of records. Like, they could press more of the things that they need, and they don't intentionally. They make everyone think that everything is super limited. And then if you go and you get the record you want, there could be someone in the queue behind you who couldn't get a copy because they got there late because they were, I don't know, like helping their sister, whatever personal things go on in people's lives, and that was the one thing that they wanted, and they've just had to go and queue for ages, and you've taken the last thing, and then the only chance they're going to have of getting one, if it was one of the actually limited things that people want, is buy it off eBay off one of the hacks that started camping out there at 7 in the morning with a smug look on their face. Seriously, all the people that were there at like 7 in the morning, they look so smug. The front of the queues with their little fold out picnic chairs, like, sake, man. Right, so there's the first 2 reasons that I don't like Record Store Day anymore. Third reason that I don't like Record Store Day, which is a slightly different one, and this is from the perspective of me being a musical artist. and releasing my own work is that it causes just awful backlogs in pressing plants all over the country. This is a problem. This is a problem for independent people, and it'll be a problem even for like bigger artists and other labels. If you want to get a record pressed on vinyl, you'd better make sure that you do it way before Record Store Day, because anywhere near that time, it just creates this huge bottleneck, all of these pressing plants. And it's probably really good for them because they make loads and loads and loads of money. But it also means that they might hike their prices up because it's Record Store Day. And like my record, which is called Her, it's an instrumental EP with kind of like ambient, post-rocky, neoclassical stuff, I guess. You can pre-order it. There's a link in the description down there if you wanted to pick up a copy. There are still some left, and there are some test pressings as well. But that record was delayed, and like the first test pressing there were problems with. So there was then a delay, and then the second ones came really quickly. But then I can remember just sending an email asking like, were there any updates on the delivery date for the third test pressings? And I got a response from the company I was using that was just like, hi mate, yeah, sorry, due to Record Store Day, everything is taking a lot longer than it should do, but we'll let you know when we have an update. And then that means that I end up with this delay getting a record that I'm releasing to people who've ordered and pre-ordered it, which makes me feel bad and look bad as well. And initially, yeah, it's about helping independent stores, and I think that's really good and a really noble thing. But I also know that there are quite a few independent record stores that don't participate in Record Store Day either. They choose not to. It's just something that has changed over time. And maybe people will watch this and think that I'm super naive. It's been going on for significantly more years than I've been collecting records for. So I don't even know what it was like when it started. It could have been the most wholesome thing, and I came in when it was already not very good. I don't know. I just think that it's changed over the years into this circus of limited releases. Doesn't really do very much to support local independent artists. I'm unsure about how much it does to support local shops. It could be really beneficial for them. And this is what I mean. Like, if you enjoy Record Store Day, that's great. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that I find it annoying now. And if it's something that is helping independent record shops to, increase their profits, pay wages and all of that, then I think it's still fundamentally a good thing, at least in principle. But I've decided that it's not really for me anymore. I'd rather take pleasure in collecting vinyl than let it be turned into a competitive race for what I've been told are exclusive and limited edition releases of things that I don't necessarily care that much about. But that's just my opinion. And I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to hear maybe some counter arguments. Maybe if you massively disagree with me, you probably want to call me a twat because of my hair or something as well, so feel free to do that. I don't care. Yeah, let me know what your experiences of Record Store Day are. And like I said, if I've said anything that's wrong, that's incorrect, that is ignorant or naive, then by all means correct me. I'm more than happy to hear whatever you have to say. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Like I said, pre-orders and links to my EP are down in the description. If anyone wanted to have a listen to it, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you very soon.